Continuous improvement says, Bill, interviews where the candidate is requested to prepare a presentation. For example, a project you did in a previous role. Do you have any tips on basic do's and don'ts? Yeah, that's a good question. That is a well-known loophole for them to exploit you, because I'm not saying everyone does this, but it is relatively common that what they will do, what a bad employer will do, is they'll bring you down and they'll dangle the job in front of you. That's, after all, why you're here. You're hoping they'll hire you. And then they'll make up some retarded rule that says, like, okay, well, in order for you to do the interview, you have to do this work. Okay, so you have to write a report or, whatever. I got burned very early on in my career with this, by the way. This is why I feel strongly about this, because I was asked to come down to a company, and as part of the interview, they gave me a little tour around their facility, right? And then they said, all the standard things. Oh, you're doing great. We're really interested, blah, blah, blah. What did you think of the tour? I was like, well, it's great. And then they said, okay, well, can I get you, as part of this process, therefore, to write essentially do an audit, like everything you saw, identify, potential improvements and, how you would apply, it was like continuous improvement or so, I can't even remember, like some quality standard or something to improve, this production process or something. I said, sure. So I wrote this report. I can't remember how long it was a few pages, and then submitted it. And then, of course, you don't hear back, right? But they then take your work and then use it, right? So it's like, so I've since learned, mainly because of that experience, that, that's a standard thing. And first of all, it's illegal, because what they're doing is they're getting around the some labor laws, like minimum wage, for example, where you can't have someone work for you for nothing, right? For free. You have to pay them, and you have to pay. That's what minimum wage is, right? And you can't just say it's volunteer or it's charity, because that would be an obvious loophole around minimum wage. There's only certain businesses that qualify for like charity and volunteer work, like usually charities, right? You can't volunteer at most businesses officially, because that would mean that the business is having you work for them for free, right? And they don't allow that, right? If you could get away with that, labor laws wouldn't, like minimum wage, wouldn't have any teeth. You wouldn't be able to enforce them, because everyone would be a volunteer, right? So they get around this in job interviews. What they found is that if some of these bad companies, if they need a little work done, right, and they don't feel like paying for it, what some people tried was you post a job, a fake job that doesn't exist. You say, it's a high-level job, manager job. And then the people that apply would be people that, can do this consulting type work for you. And you bring them down on the pretense of this job, and then you get them to do this work under the guise of it's part of the, hiring process, the part of the recruitment and selection process. We need a sample of your work, so we're going to ask you to do this. And there was no job at the end of it. It's just a ruse to get you to do the work and not pay you, right? So that's been outed, right? Like 10 years ago, they were doing this, and it became a big thing, and everyone was talking about it finally. So be careful what you submit is what I'm going to say, continuous improvements, because if they're asking you to do some exercise, like a skill testing thing, that's okay. But if they're asking you to do something that they could take and, it would help them further their business goals, like, it has nothing to do with simply evaluating you as a candidate, that clearly falls under the category of work. And then what you would do about that, if you chose to, if you got burned on that, was you could potentially pick up the hotline to the branch of the local government that manages labor laws, right? So where I am in Canada, labor laws are run at the state level, like the provincial level. So it's part of the provincial government. They have like HR Act, and like that's where it lays out all the employment rules. So what comes along with that is there's a department that they enforce that. They're like the police for that stuff, and they have the power to shut down any company if they want to. They don't take crap from anyone. They're there to enforce the law, and just like the police, like if you don't cooperate with them, they have the power to end you. You know what I'm saying? As a business. So they have like a hotline where you can easily find this with a 20-second Google search. And you can call the number and you can ask questions about, if my employer is asking me to do this, is that okay? And you don't have to give your name, so it can be totally anonymous. So you can also give tips. You can say, this company is doing this. Just thought you'd like to know. Goodbye. Click, right? And they will investigate those. Now, in most regions of the world, they have their equivalent of this. Whoever is in charge of enforcing the labor laws, whatever branch of government, go do a Google search in your region. They have that. So if you want to find a way to get back at them, that's all you got to do, right? And then there's like an official complaint, and you don't give your name. You can call anonymously, and from a public phone if you want to, and and then that company will get a few uncomfortable calls right to the owners and right to the CEO or whatever. About this stuff. So there's always that, right? For most people, you'll just chalk it up to experience, not fall into that trap again. That's the biggest one. If they have reasonable stuff they're asking you to do, sure. If they're, if just like a little thing, sure. But like going to great lengths, that's a sign of a bad employer. There's other ways, easier ways of doing this.